let's get into the message, the real heart of the message tonight. What did I say? I titled this message, Failure to Protect. And it's funny, I think I got the terminology from my line of work and working with DCFS, and there's this essentially thing that you can be found guilty of with DCFS when it comes to child welfare. This concept of failing to protect, right? Like, it is your responsibility to protect those under your guardianship. If you're the parent, you are responsible for protecting your children and providing for them. And to me, this made sense. That we give so much attention to the serpent as being the villain. We give so much attention to Eve as like being the screw up and taking Adam down with her. And in reality, I think Adam is who obliterated mankind. I think Adam was the most guilty in this situation. And I'm going to paint a picture for why. I have essentially 7 key failures that Adam is responsible for that I think made this whole thing happen. So, what did I just say? That I didn't think it took the serpent for this disaster to happen. Why? Because I think mentally they were already halfway there. The reality is you've got this brand new world, huge creation. I can't fathom it not being a huge garden, huge orchard. Maybe that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't feel like they were having to circle this tree on a regular basis because this was just a small plot of land. And so I sit here and I wonder, how in the world did y'all wind up by the tree in the first place? Like, if you know you can go anywhere in the garden, and then there's this one place, this one tree that if you slipped up, you would die. Like, I'm not hanging out in that part of the orchard, you know? If I'm really trying to follow God's will, I've got work to do and so on and so forth. I feel like that's not the place I'm hanging out. And yet here we have this story where they just happen to stumble across a serpent at that tree. And I feel like Adam's first failure was the failure to keep Eve and himself from danger. Why were you in that part of the garden to begin with? You know, talk about setting yourself up for failure. Talk about not making wise decisions and putting yourself in a position to fall. And that's what we have here. From the get-go, and we know from the story that Adam was right there the whole time. So, like, that's our baseline. Let's get that straight. Eve was not, like, out being foolish, and then Adam showed up. He was there the whole time. And they wound up at that tree, not by mistake. They chose to be there. Adam chose to put them in a position to fall, to potentially screw up. He failed to keep them away from the tree when they got close. He failed to recognize a cunning serpent who was up to no good. He failed to simply say, hey, this is a bad idea. Let's go elsewhere. We got this whole perfect world to ourselves. We don't need any of this mess. Let's go mind your own business and go somewhere else. And he didn't do that. And that's on Adam, in my opinion. That's not on Eve. That's on Adam. And he utterly dropped the ball as the man of God in the situation, the original man of God, the one who has spoke to God the most at this point, gotten the most advice, the most information from God about who he is and what the garden's like and everything else. Like, he's supposed to be the expert. And he drops the ball. Let me be clear, men. When it comes to your relationships, if at any point in your life you have kind of a lifted position in comparison to other people, now that could be as a father to your children, depending on how you look, even in a healthy marriage, your position to protect and be there for your wife and protect your marriage as a unified couple. Maybe that's even if you have authority on like a job, a coaching position, or whatever else. It's your job to keep those people from dangerous situations, not to walk them right up to one. And that's the challenge here. Don't be like Adam. Don't fail to protect by drawing them into dangerous situations to begin with. Be better than that. Do what you can to keep them from the tree and the serpent in the first place. Number 2, failure to speak up when his wife was being tempted. There is a number of slick words being thrown around and painted for Eve. And again, here's the deal. I don't care how creative or cunning the words were. Adam was there the whole time. He knew better. Adam was not an idiot. I spent time talking about that in our last video. Adam was not some fool. He was created intelligent, created with language, created with creativity and a wisdom that would have been more than enough. And yet, he's standing right there as the serpent is trying to trick Eve. He's standing right there when she adds some extra words. She's standing right there when they're starting to doubt and not trusting God's will in their life. He's standing right there as the serpent is starting to paint God as not good. Paint God as the villain. Paint God as wanting less for them. And he doesn't say a darn word. And I think at the core of manhood, we have to be willing to stand up and speak up. That means to stand up and speak up to protect your children, to protect your wife, to protect your family, your friends, to protect those who are victims in this world, whether it be because of racism or some other ill-gotten thing, whether it be because of some other struggle they might have in their life. Like, I don't care what it is. Your duty as a man is to speak up for justice and to protect those under your care. And Adam utterly fails to do this. Like, he just stands there like a punk. He does. Like, Adam was a punk in this moment. He just witnessed it and did nothing. He could have cared less. Zero action is pathetic. And then to top it, he fails to prevent his wife from eating the fruit. And here's the thing. You have to understand that at a baseline, they know that God told them that tree produces fruit that will kill you. And I can't think of one halfway decent husband in this world who would watch his wife eat poison and not try to stop it. Not try to keep it from happening in the first place, not try to keep it from entering her mouth, not try to get her to throw it up, not try to get her help immediately after. Like, I don't know one man who's a husband worth squat in this world who wouldn't do that. I don't know one man who's a father in this world. I take that back. I don't know any personally, but I work on behalf of and with victims of domestic violence. And so I deal with the consequence. I deal with the aftermath of men who completely fail to care. If they're not causing the abuse directly themselves, they are so negligent that they would watch their children eat poison and do nothing about it. So I know it exists. I know it exists in this world, but let me be clear, like, that is not an aspect of masculinity. That is not something tied into our DNA. That is a choice. Choosing to do nothing is a choice. And Adam utterly fails to protect his wife in this moment as he watches her eat something he knows is supposed to kill her. And he does nothing. Don't be Adam in your life. Don't watch people you love do dangerous, harmful things and do nothing and act like you just don't care about the outcome, because that's what this story says. Number 4, Adam fails to stand strong even for himself. So what do I mean here? He lets all of this happen. He watches her eat this fruit. He still knows it's poisonous. And yet he fails to stand on his own understanding. And he eats it himself as well. In fact, on some level, I think he's like somehow made a rapid transition to like desire and, jealousy or whatever himself, because he's watching this happen. And again, apparently, if they don't die in 0.02 seconds, it must be fine. And so Eve eats of the fruit. She doesn't die on the spot. She offers it to Adam. And what's Adam do? Without flinching, eats it himself. Just utter disregard for his own well-being. So it's not just like he's not just selfish because he didn't care about anybody else. He clearly doesn't even care about himself at this point. And it shows that he couldn't stand on his own morals, and he clearly doesn't trust or believe in the word of his own creator at all. Because if he did, he wouldn't have intentionally eaten something that could kill him. Number 5, Adam fails to remain unashamed. And we talked about the fact that we were created by nature to be unashamed. The fact that like they were placed in this world with authority and position and power and importance and blessings and everything else. They walked freely. They didn't have a care in the world. They were unashamed of their bodies. They were proud of who they were, and they knew God deeply and personally. And as soon as Adam eats, that's gone. Like as soon as he takes a bite, his eyes are opened as well. He sees that he's naked. You've been naked your entire existence. Like mankind has not worn clothes up until this point, and yet he instantly feels shame for his own body. And this one's just so hard to wrap my mind around, to think that like the only two beings in the universe that Adam knew or cared about, God first and then his wife. And he's now filled with shame in front of both of them. So he makes clothes. He tries to cover up his nakedness. And I mean, that's the catch, right? Like, it's not just the wisdom. Like, knowing you're naked does not make you instantly want to hide per se. It's so tragic that they ate of this fruit and gave wisdom in a way that they couldn't handle it. And it destroyed their relationships. Like, that's where the shame comes in. Like, think about how naturally shameful they now feel about the most natural aspects of who they are. And it destroys their relationships. Like, the marriage is screwed up now. The relationship with God is screwed up. It leads into failure number 6, and that Adam fails to trust in God's love. His relationship's busted. He feels shame, he feels guilt, he feels all of these things, even though he hasn't died yet. God, who was his best friend, his creator, his everything, hours ago, now shows up on the scene, and Adam wants to hide. He's hiding his body, and now he's hiding his physical being. And he doesn't know how to deal with this reality that he is now not right with God, and he knows it. He knows it. And it's just awful to watch, like watching this perfect relationship get utterly obliterated. Like, how often do our actions result in broken relationship? Have you had a sin in your life that destroyed your family, destroyed your reputation? You know, did some addiction just take over, and you wasted through the family's money, or you made bad decisions, or did harmful things to somebody, or who knows what? Maybe you've, cheated or had an affair or something, and the relationship couldn't be reconciled. Even if you stayed together, it just wasn't what it used to be, because the trust was broken. It was gone. Our actions, our choices, which seem okay in the moment, which are rooted in pride and selfishness, can immediately obliterate our most precious things in life and these relationships we have with people we love. And if we're not careful, it can destroy the relationship we have with God if we don't trust in his grace and love. And he didn't. Adam didn't think of his God first as somebody who loves him, didn't think of his God first as somebody who could deal with his mistake, but rather he immediately hid and tried to create, and he did create, in fact, actively created a distance between him and his God. And number 7, Adam utterly fails to take responsibility for his mistake. And I would argue his mistakes. Again, like, you look at Eve's situation, and like, yes, there were a lot of like stumbles along the way, but like ultimately her relationship was being duped and then eating something she shouldn't have eaten. When you look at Adam's situation the way I just laid out, and you look at the number of complete failures by choice as the first man of God, the head of their household, the however you want to look at it. And I put a great deal of responsibility and accountability on men in any situation. That's just my baseline, is that we should be better and we should lead by example. And the fact that when push came to shove and God asked, like, what's the deal? What happened? Adam first. Notice, like, God goes straight to Adam first. Doesn't mess with anything else at first. He goes to Adam. What happened? Something's not right. Something's broken. What's the deal? And his answer is so telling. Because here Adam's life is already starting to unravel and fall apart. And he's feeling guilt and shame and all of this stuff. And when he has an opportunity to own up to his sin, when he has an opportunity to own up to his mistake, what does he do? He immediately blames other people. But the hilarious part, or the sad part, is that he takes shot at the two most important relationships in his life. You notice, like, Eve blames the snake. Eve blames the serpent, who was actually a villain. Even though she had her own responsibility, like, she actually blames at least somebody who was guilty. The crazy part here is that Adam does the opposite. He tries to first blame God. Think about this, and where do I get that from? Let's look at how Adam responds to God in this moment. It says that the man said, Adam said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit of the tree and I ate it." His first tactic is to say, God, you screwed up. Had you not put woman in my life, if you hadn't knocked me out, stole my rib, created this perfect human being that, let's be honest, like 2 hours ago I was in love with and it was the best thing you ever created, you were a genius. But now I'm questioning it because I screwed up, and I think it's because she made me screw up, and really that's your fault. Like, that's his process in his mind right now, is how can I deflect accountability in my life? And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to blame the creator and blesser in my life. I'm going to say that this person who gave me something incredible, because that incredible thing kind of bit me in the butt, it must be, my problems in life must be because of God. And we do this, right? We've all been there. Adam blows off accountability, first tries to put it off on God, and then he tries to blame his wife. It's her fault. She got herself into this situation. She got tricked. She then tricked me. Like, she gave me fruit. What was I supposed to do? She's my wife. Shouldn't I eat it? Blah, blah, blah. Like, pathetic. This is where, like, I lose so much respect for Adam as a man, because the example he leads by is just atrocious. He goes from being this awesome version of what man could have been, and then he makes a series of choices that shows how horrible we can be. And he's not even like I'm disgusted, and he's not even abusive or anything like that. And I don't know, maybe this is worse in some level. To think that he wants to blame Eve, his wife, for his troubles, when he could have, let's go back through those failures. He could have kept them away from that part of the garden to begin with. He could have kept them away from the creepy talking serpent who was speaking all kinds of mess. He could have spoke up when Eve was stumbling on the facts, and when the serpent was lying and blaspheming God. He could have stopped his wife from eating the fruit to begin with. And even if all of that didn't go as planned and she still ate, he could have still just chosen not to eat the fruit. In fact, let me put this out there. This is probably like a wild theory that's not even worth going down, but think about this for a second. Let's say that Adam does try, but Eve eats anyways. She falls, he doesn't. What happens? The reality is, and God had options. Like, he could have just started over with everybody. But if Eve falls and he doesn't, the reality is like Eve could have just been killed, abandoned, kicked out of the garden, and died. But Adam would have still been in right relationship. Adam would have still been blameless. Adam would have still been sinless. Adam would have been right with God. Adam could have gotten a new helpmate. a new woman, if that would have been God's plan. I don't know. We'll never know. But Adam could have made a whole series of different choices. So to try to cast the blame, the responsibility for his failure in life on his wife and on his God, when he could have done so many things differently, it's sad. It's really pathetic. We as men have to be better than this. We have to not fail so often in life for those that we love. If you believe in the Word of God, if you're already a Christian, if you're already a believer, it's easy for me to sit here and look at you and say, like, you've got to be a better man. Being a man of God is not this. Being a man of God looks a whole lot more like Jesus. Jesus is described as the second Adam, the one who got it right, the one who redeemed us for the eternal damnation that came with the first Adam. Being a man of God means looking a whole lot more like the second Adam than the first. But we can learn from the first. If you find yourself relating to the first one, you need to make some changes. You need to do a better job of protecting and a lesser job of failing to protect. That's probably the moral of this story to begin with. Like, obviously, it's the start of our story as mankind, and it's a rough one at that. But if there's one thing that I could speak to tonight about why this message is worth talking about, it's to take off some of the spotlight from the serpent. Take the spotlight off of Eve a lot. And really take a good hard look at Adam, who really, really drops the ball for himself and for his wife, for everybody who comes after him. And ultimately his relationship with God. It's destroyed. So I want to take a minute to, we're going to transition to the second half of this story. I want to look at two more areas of study, I guess. And that is that I want to talk about the cost of this disobedience. I want to talk about the cost of this failure. On all those key characters. We'll talk about the serpent, we'll talk about the woman, and we'll talk about man, because the curse that is the natural consequence for each one of them is different and specific. Hey everybody, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to check out this latest video. Hopefully it challenged you and blessed you in a positive way. If you like what you heard, be sure and smash this button right here. Subscribe to our channel, Man Up Ministry Online, to get access to the latest content. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit these buttons right over here to check out the rest of the series.